Welcome everyone to Casey and the Word Factory. I'm your guest host, Sarah Cage, and today's author, self-published author, is Anne Flint, and she's brought in Pettigrew Hall, the biography of a house. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you.
All right. And so, your book, Pettigrew Hall, the biography of a house. Why the biography of a house? It's kind of unusual.
Good.
Yeah.
As I was writing the first book, I thought about a 600-year-old house and all the things that might have taken place over that period of time, the different people that lived there through the centuries, artifacts, ghosts, any number of things that would be in that house. So I thought it's kind of the story of the house.
Very good. Well, I've read the book twice. I love the characters. The main character for me was the house. It was very intriguing. I loved how it weaved through the story and the intimate relationship between your character and the house. It was wonderful. So I know there's a series. So can you talk about that a little bit?
There is a series. I am now working on the second book, which is actually the very beginning of the development of the property. So it's the 13th century. At that time there was a castle being built, so Pettigrew Hall itself was not there on the property. But the castle is being built in the 13th century book. That book is about a young woman who is left basically in charge of this castle when her father and her uncle and so many of the men go to fight in the Fourth Crusade, which was a holy mess,
Yes.
so to speak.
Yes.
And through death and accidents and all kinds of things, she becomes more and more responsible for this property and the people that are left there. So that's what the story is about.
And I'm intrigued. There's a small snippet of writing from that book in Pettigrew Hall, which has intrigued me to really want to read the second book. So,
Good.
very, very good. Okay, is this house real?
It is not. It is purely imaginary. It is based on 3 houses that are real in England that I just love, I find so fascinating and beautiful. One is called Stokesay Castle. It has a jettied window that hangs out over the castle walls, and I talk about that in the 13th century book. Scotney Castle is a beautiful ruined castle that's surrounded by a moat, and it's very romantic, lovely. And Little Morton Hall, which looks a great deal like what I've described in the book. So that's probably the closest to my house.
And there's a lot of description, architectural description in the book, so that's really nice for them to get a view of this, examples of them. What is your writing process?
I don't really have one. If I have something to say, it's great. I can sit down and type it faster than, or not be able to type as fast as I'm thinking, I guess is what I should say. And that's a wonderful feeling, but I'm not the kind of author who can force myself to show up and write. I just can't.
Well,
There's
some
nothing
do,
to
some
say.
don't, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and why self-publishing?
That is a long answer.
Okay.
I'll try to shorten this up for you. There's been a huge revolution in publishing of books in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, I would say. And if you go the traditional route, you could write 300 to 500 letters to publishing companies asking them to publish your book, and wait for them to respond, and get a lot of rejection letters, which I could not handle. If they do select your book, it could be 2 to 3 years before that book ever hits the bookstores. And you would get 10% of the profits, not sales, profits. And you lose total control of your book.
That's the biggie.
Yeah, and today with so many things that we're doing with books, e-books and videos and that type of thing, I just think you're better off to publish your own book. you have to do all of the promotion anyway. You have to do the editing. Many of those things that publishing companies used to provide, they no longer do. So that's basically why.
Yeah, and as you've just said, there's a lot of hats to wear, and so cover design. How did you approach that?
I am an artist and have been for many decades, actually. So for me, I never even thought about what would I do for a cover. I mean, I knew that I was going to do it. I got very lucky in hunting around on the internet. I found a painting from, I think it was 1885, something like that, 1800s, by a man named George Thieker. And he painted Little Morton Hall in watercolor. It's now in the public domain, so I did not have to worry about using somebody else's property. So I took that picture and photoshopped it just a little so that it would look more like what I'm describing in my book, and that's what I used. And I'll continue to use that for future books. I'll change the appearance just a little bit. You know, maybe it'll get more paint or not so many bushes around it or something, but it will be the same picture basically.
Oh, okay.
So.
All right. And as a reader, being that I've read the book twice, like I said, the plot was so interesting and it was so intriguing and it was a great ride for the reader. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe how you come up with plots, how you twist and turn them?
I'm not sure how I do that actually. The book does have a lot of unexpected things, I guess you would say. Things with characters and the plot that I think are a surprise. And I can say that they were sometimes a surprise to me. My characters kind of took off on their own. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm not the only author I have found.
I've had other authors tell me that too, yes.
Yeah, and I initially spent a lot of time protesting that and saying, no, 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 you're not going there, you're not going there. But what I realized eventually was that if that was something that I found very surprising, then my readers would. And so I went with it.
Yes, it was wonderful.
Thank you.
So, the writing process, this journey of writing, being self-published, did you learn anything?
I really did, yes. The first thing I learned was how my brain works and how it doesn't work. That would be difficult to describe, but it was an interesting learning process. The second big thing was, as a long-time reader, reading lots of different writers, I don't think most people analyze how a book is put together, how the plot works, the characters. But when you're on the other side of it and you are having to come up with it out of your head, I think that one of the most surprising things was it suddenly occurred to me that you have some choices, vehicles as to how you're going to impart information to the reader. So for instance, if you want your reader to know some information, you can either have that come out in conversation with your characters, or you could have the character dream it, or maybe they're just musing to themselves. Maybe they're reading it in a letter, remembering that it happened. There's a lot of different ways you can do that to still get that information across to your reader. So that was a delightful find on my end.
And I think that is good writing. That is intriguing, and it's you know, takes the reader on that journey, and it's not telling them what's going on, it's showing them, and you do it very well.
Thank you.
We always ask our authors if they would be willing to do a reading of a couple of paragraphs of their books. Would you be willing to do that a little later? All right, fine. All right. So, motivation. Can you give us a little glimpse into what motivates you to write?
I have to have something to say. I really can't write without something important to say. But when it's there, then, you know, I can just sit there and spit it out quickly. It's a terrific high. Hard to describe.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Well, we're gonna take a little break right now and let Ann do her reading, and then we'll come back and we'll close up, and so we're gonna give it to Ann.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm going to read an excerpt from chapter 17. A breeze had picked up, and the whooshing of the wind around the windows sounded like a ghost moaning. This began to annoy her as she worked, so she adjusted the windows to stop the sound. Back on the ladder again, the sound was more like "you." As she worked her way to the other side of the fireplace, something clicked under her hand, and with a creaking sound, a panel opened inward. As Megan was pushing against it at the time, she fell forward against the inside wall and onto a small landing. Megan was more than surprised to find herself on the floor of this landing. She had banged her elbow on the wall hard enough for it to ache now. Moving back to the outside room, she stood peering around the opening, trying to see below, while rubbing her elbow. There were very narrow steps leading downward, but it was too dark to see more than 2 steps. When she fell, her mobile and her torch had fallen out of her work apron. She bent down to pick them up. Flashing through her mind was the question of the priest hole. She wondered if this was it. Turning on the flashlight, she showed it around the walls. They appeared to be plastered. The stairs were wooden. She shone the light down the steps and began slowly testing them for strength. She should probably wait for Gray's return, but curiosity got the better of her. Besides, she would have something really cool to show him later. When she had descended about 20 steps, she could see something below her. Something was most definitely there, but her light was not strong enough to discern any details. Continuing down slowly, she saw what appeared to be an old leather shoe. Following the light up from the shoe, she could see it attached to something, and her heart began to pound. Well, I hope that's intrigued you enough to read Pettigrew Hall, the biography of a house.
Oh, that was fabulous. Welcome back. That was really good, Ann. That was really intriguing. I know I'm going to be right there getting that second book when it's done. So can you tell our readers, do you have a blog?
I do have a blog. It's on my website. So you can go to www.pettigrewhall.com, and there you will find a tab that says blog. So there's a list of the blogs that I've done. I don't blog often because I want what I say to be worthy of reading and not just spam. And I don't write exclusively about my books. I like to write other things, you know, and explore other things. So I either write something that's real interesting or educational, or it could be funny. And I always post it there, so it can be found, and you can put yourself on the list to receive it also, if you're interested.
All right, great. So we've been talking about the new book, and I know that there have been some book clubs and things that have taken your first book, Pettigrew Hall, and have read that and used the study guide that you might have on your webpage.
Mhm.
So can you tell our readers about that?
There is a tab that says about the book, I believe is where it is, and there is a information or a list of questions that a book club might like to discuss about the story. There's other things on the website that might be of interest. I've posted a lot of inspirational photos from different buildings I've visited, or pictures of things I talk about in the books, because I describe maybe how something is built, or a beautiful fireplace, or a ceiling, that kind of thing. So there's quite a few pictures. There's a tab called About Anne, and you can find out a mini biography and some of my paintings, and
Great,
I think contact page.
great.
So,
Wonderful.
lots of
information. Lots of information. So your 13th century book is almost published, and we're waiting with bated breath. And is there anything else in the pipeline? Any new projects?
Yes, I am writing a nonfiction book, oddly enough, that is not part of the series, of course. I don't really want to call it a travel guide, but it is a book that talks about places I have visited in England, my experiences there, my perceptions, and then the history of the site, and oftentimes contains far more information than you would get if you just went, walked in the door and did the normal tour. So much more in-depth and interesting stories, ghost stories, anecdotes, that kind of thing.
So kind of like a fiction writer writes a tour book, but with more flavor.
I hadn't thought about that. I like that.
There you go.
And much to my surprise, my readers liked Megan and Gray from my first book so much and kept asking me what happens with them next. So I am writing a sequel to that. And I'm playing around with a Victorian period book, so I've plenty to write.
Yeah, you got plenty
few
to say.
centuries.
You have plenty to say.
I do.
That's great. Well, good. So Anne, I want to thank you for being a guest today and bringing Pettigrew Hall, the Biography of a House, and giving us a little inspiration for the new book that's coming out. That's great, so thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. This is Casey in the Word Factory saying, remember, come with me and you'll be in an author's pure imagination.